17, I ran away from home and from everything I had ever known. I was sick and tired, living in a town filled with narrow minds and hay. They used to laugh at me, their children called me names, I would run and hide.
Hello, I'm Claudrine Jackson, and you've tuned in to A Spoonful of Comfort. We talk about a spoonful of comfort because a spoonful is the minimum amount of anything that you can give anybody. And we all have a spoonful of comfort. So instead of us looking for someone to comfort us, we can be the one that does the comfort. And that's what I'm reminding you and me, that we all have a spoonful of comfort. We need comfort during these trying times. I have a song. I'm going to recite the lyrics to you. Now, I do you the favor of, when it's a song, I do you the favor of not singing it. I recite it. This is called Now is the Time. Now is the time to do what is right. Now is the time while the sun's shining bright. Now is the time, for soon comes the night, to get right and serve the Lord. And I want to remind you that now is the time to serve God, but it's also the time to serve yourself. What is it that you've been putting off? What is it that you have in mind that you want to do? Now is the time. Yesterday, I attended yet another funeral. There's been funeral after funeral. And we never know how much time we have left. So do what is on your mind to do. Now is the time. I talked about the 20 grand reunion, and that we were going to have the Mr. 20 grand men and the Miss 20 grand women. And one of the people that would have been the perfect Mr. 20 grand man was Edgar Brazelton. I don't know if you're familiar with Brazelton's florist, but they were a few doors down from Motown, from Hitsville, USA. And they are still there near the Motown Museum. So a lot of the Motown artists got their flowers from Brazelton. And I still do get things from Brazelton's florist. So I went over there this month I had to go pick up flowers for a funeral. I went over there and to talk to Ed Brazelton. I knew Brazelton Sr. and I knew Brazelton Jr. I went over to talk to Ed Brazelton about being one of the Mr. 20 grand men. Ed was tall and handsome and cultured and dapper. He was a ladies' man, but he was a very kind person. And he used to come in the 20 grand quite often. So I said, well, he will make one of the Mr. 20 grand men. Well, I found out that he had passed away and his funeral was in February. So that's why I say now is the time. A lot of 20 grand people are not here anymore. So those of us that are still here, it's important that we document some of the history. The 20 grand was a big part of the Detroit history, and we're losing so many people. So if you used to frequent the 20 grand and you want to be on the show, I would love to have you on the show to talk about remembering the 20 grand and remembering the way things were back then. Back then, during the 20 grand days, it was safe to go out at night. It was easy to go out and not worry about someone bothering you. It was maybe more innocent times. And maybe I'm longing for the more innocent times. So I want to remind you about the Purvis Jackson Foundation, pjjraf.org, that helps children with handicaps. I want to remind you about my book, Inspired by Autism, that you can buy right here at WHPR. And if you do pick up the book here, I will autograph it for you. I want to share the Purvis Foundation's guiding scripture, which is that which ye do for the least of my brethren, ye do it also unto me. And that's Matthew 25:40. So I have been one of the more fortunate. My son is one of the less fortunate. And doesn't God want those of us who are more fortunate to help the less fortunate? So my son has taught me, I mentioned all the things that I've learned from my son. So one of the things that I learned from him is that even though people are less fortunate, they are still worth our time and effort. So I'm going to take a short break. Before I take the break, I want to say hello to the congregation at New Mount Vernon Missionary Baptist Church, where I am a deacon. Hello, everybody. And I also want to introduce you to my guest right after the break. I have a very special guest that I will be introducing you to.
When I was 17, I ran away from home and from everything I had ever known. I was sick and tired, living in a town filled with narrow minds and hate. They used to laugh at me, their children called me names. I would run and hide, feeling so ashamed just for being born. I was just a boy, punished for a crime that was not mine. Life ain't so easy when you're a ghetto child.
Thank you for sticking with me for a spoonful of comfort. I want to introduce to you my very, very special guest today who's going to offer us a spoonful of comfort. This very special guest happens to be my number one son, Herbert Dushan. We call him Sean. So Sean has written a poem that he has been sharing quite a bit, and it's about black men. So without further ado, Herbert, Sean.
Good morning. Good afternoon. I had originally penned this poem for a program in 1992, but it tended to take on a life of its own, and I've been invited to numerous Men's Day programs at different churches to do this poem. And the poem is entitled, Stand Up Black Men Stand Tall. Stand up, black men, stand tall. We've come too far to continue to fall. From kings through queens and slaves through Jim Crow laws. Stand up, black men, stand tall. The time has come to take our men back. Take them away from alcohol. Take them away from crack. Take them away from those 911 calls. It's time, black men, to stop filling up those prison walls. Stand up, black men, stand tall. Get off the streets, get off the corners. It's time to start raising our sons and our daughters. To be strong black men, the head of our homes. Lord knows our sisters shouldn't have to keep doing it alone. Stand up, black men, stand tall. Put to rest once and for all that crazy myth that we can only play basketball. We need role models who are not 7 feet tall. We need doctors, lawyers, teachers and such, even pastors and shepherds whom we love so much. We have fathers who work hard every day, who face responsibilities as they come their way. These are the men we should look up to. It's not how much money you make, it's what you do. Stand up, black men, stand tall. The road will be rough, but if you happen to fall, pick yourself up, get back in the saddle. Be strong, my brother, we need you for this battle. It's time to claim our sons, to take our neighborhoods back. It's time to stop our daughters from selling their bodies for that crack. It's time to put our trust in Jesus Christ. He'll make us strong. He'll prepare us for this fight. So let's strap on our armor, stick out our chest. Until we win this battle, we will not rest. We must end this nonsense once and for all. Stand up, black men, stand tall. We've come too far to continue to fall. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Now, can you tell us something about what inspired you to write that poem?
Well, I guess it comes a time in every man's life that he has to stand up and stand tall. I'm a firm believer that you don't let your situation dictate your life. You let your life dictate your situation. And it's a lot of men that are not standing up and taking their rightful place in society. We have a thing now what's going around is the Black Lives Matter. But I think the men should start saying I matter, my life matter. And let me be the man that I should be, the man that God wants me to be, and handle my responsibilities and raise my children that are fathered, provide for my children that are fathered, find a job. It may not be the job that you want, but it's a job that you may need, and we can't just keep being party to the hope, the despair and lack of hope that's in our society today.
Thank you very much. Now, uh, as I said, this is my son, so I've been knowing him, I won't say how many years. He just had a birthday, and I found out that he was older than I thought he was. But I'm very proud of the person that he has turned out to be. I'm very proud that he thinks along these lines, because we need more black men to encourage each other and guide each other. So I'm really proud of that. But we want to go into a little more information about him. Now, when he was a little boy, something was always broken and he was always fixing things. And I would say, why is that broken? He'd say, I'm fixing it. And I would say, well, it wasn't broke until you started fixing it. But he did turn out to be someone who knows how to fix things and puts things together. And I was going to take my vacuum cleaner to the shop recently, and he fixed it for me. So it saved me money and a trip. So tell us about your ability to fix things.
Well, not necessarily fixing, but I have a penchant for assembling. So I do have a small business entitled No Assembly Required. And that's where anything that you purchase that needs to be assembled, I will come out and assemble it for you. Entertainment centers, workout stations, desks, tables, bedroom sets, anything that needs to be assembled, I'll come out and assemble it for you.
And that's the opposite of me. When they say, when you need something assembled, I'm not the person. So do you want to tell us anything? Well, I have a question about high school. Can you remember high school?
Yes, I can remember high school.
Your senior year of high school, you made a big positive turnaround. Because before that, I was getting one report from the teachers. And then his senior year in high school, I remember you won an award for most improved. Was it with track or student
Well,
or?
the most improved was my freshman year of basketball, but for my senior year, it was all city, honorable mention, all state, sportsmanship award for my senior year at Mumford.
So I still remember that, and I was very proud of that, because to me, you made a big turnaround that year. You seemed to come to a new realization. And I remember you telling me back then that you wish you had improved sooner.
Right. And I think a lot of men get caught up in the I wish I would have done different earlier, or I wish I would have made better choices earlier. But you have to understand the choices that you made put you in the position that you're in now, and you have to do what you can to make better choices, or not content, but understand the position you're in and what can you do to make a better future for you and others around you.
So I know you have a son now that's active in not actually playing the sports, but tell us what he's doing.
My son Trey, he's a reporter for West Bloom. He's a junior at West Bloomfield High School, and he's really deep into the media, into broadcasting. So he was this past year for football a sideline reporter for the students radio station. The students broadcast their own they do their own broadcast, and they recently received a first place award for best student sports commentary from the Michigan Association of Broadcasters, which is a pretty big award as far as broadcasting is concerned, for first place for best student award. So I'm pretty proud of him for that.
And I am proud of him for that also. Now, I mentioned if you wanted to be on the show to talk about the 20 grand reunion or to talk about anything else, what gives you comfort. And my son told you about his company that will put things together. So our number is on the bottom of the screen. If you want to call in now, I should have said this earlier, but if you want to call in and speak to one of us, you can call in on the call-in numbers that are listed. You can also reach me at Jackson Claudreen, CLAUDREEN, at sbcglobal.net. And you can reach the Purvis Foundation at pjjraf.org. I haven't had many calls in. I've had some comments about the show from people in the community, but I haven't had anybody to call in. So I like a conversation. If someone calls in, then it's a conversation. Other than that, it's me talking to you, which I enjoy that too. I say that now is the time. I think that now is the time for all of us to do the things that have been on our mind to do. Whatever you've been procrastinating about, now is the time to do it. I was a big procrastinator. Now is the time to forgive. Do you have someone that you need to forgive? You know, we have to forgive others their trespasses so that the Lord will forgive our trespasses. So now is the time to forgive. Now is the time to serve God. Now is the time to do something good for yourself. When a lot of times when I was depressed and I would think about how do I get out of this depression, going on a trip was always good for me. And I would plan, if I couldn't go on it right then, just thinking about where I wanted to go and planning the trip. And all trips don't have to be very expensive. I remember one of my favorite places in the country to go is to Niagara Falls. And I remember during one of my times when I was feeling low, I went to Niagara Falls. And if you've ever been to Niagara Falls and seen all the power of all that water, I consider that as one of God's fingerprints. There are places on the earth that you know is nobody but God. And I consider Niagara Falls as one of God's fingerprints. The oceans, they are God's fingerprints. If you can get out and travel and change your environment, you will come out of whatever it is that's holding you back. Now, my son here, is there anything else you wanted to add while we're talking?
I'm just honored to be here. Honored to be here with this wonderful woman. And a lot of what I am today is because of what she instilled in me. And I just love you and appreciate you for that.
Well, I appreciate you for turning out to be the person that I always knew you could. He didn't always appreciate what I guess no child ever always appreciates, what their parents are trying to develop when they're trying to develop their potential. But one of the things that I don't know what scripture it came from, but I know Norman Vincent Peale. I talk about Norman Vincent Peale some. He said that sometimes when you don't know that something is improving, where no visible results appear, a great work is being done in the invisible. And I am so thankful for that. And I remember that because sometimes we're praying, We feel like our prayer is not being answered, but God is working on answering our prayer, and we don't even know it. So God answered my prayers for my son and turned him into an upstanding, spiritually led young man that I'm very proud of. My other son, on the other hand, Purvis Jr., who cannot read or write or talk or speak, I was in a lot of depressions part of the time because of his condition, because it wasn't the condition that I wanted. I wanted him to thrive and learn and grow. He grew. He's a big guy, but a lot of the things that I wanted for him did not come about. And when I was praying for God to cure him, I say that God did not cure him, but he cured me. And my son can't talk, but I can. My son can't read or write, but I can. So the Purvis Foundation is for people like my son. It doesn't have to be autism. Whatever disability a lower income child has, if the parent needs help from the Purvis Foundation. Wealthy parents can send their children to camp. They can pay for treatments. They can pay for medications. They can do a lot of things that lower income parents can't do. So the Purvis Foundation, we're trying to lower the playing field some to help some of the lower income parents. We can't do everything for everybody, but I've told you the starfish story about the man that was walking along the beach, and if a starfish is walked up on the beach, it'll die if it's not thrown back in the water. So he was picking up starfish and he was throwing them back into the water. And someone came along and said, well, there are too many starfish. You can't save them all, so it doesn't make a difference. So the man picked up another starfish. He threw it into the water, and he said it made a difference to that one. So that's the Purvis Jackson Foundation theory. We can't help everyone, but we can help someone. And we have made a difference to some parents. The Purvis Foundation has helped over 500 parents since it was begun. So in your life, if you can't solve the whole problem, can you just do a little bit? You don't have to move the whole mountain, but maybe you can move a few pebbles. Maybe there is something you can do. And having a son who can't do a lot of things that I wanted him to do inspires me. I learned from him that I could do things, prayers of intervention for him, and I could do things better from looking at him and what he couldn't do. So it'll be time for us to go shortly. I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, I just be having a brother with special needs. It made me more conscious and gave me more of a sense of empathy for those with special needs. And it's for lack of a better phrase, it irritates me when you're out in public and there's someone with special needs and people are giving you these funny looks or giving people funny looks because they don't understand that this person has special needs, but they decide they deserve to have their own space in the world there, and they decide to get as much love as someone that's quote unquote normal. So let's try to be conscious of that. If you're at the store or at a concert or somewhere and there's a child or an adult with special needs and they may do something that you're not comfortable with, don't let that be known. I even will go up to someone who has an autistic child and say, is he autistic? And they'll say, yeah. And I say, I have an autistic brother. And you don't know how sometimes people just appreciate you for acknowledging that you understand what they're going through and you understand that they're dealing with a special needs child or a special needs adult. And it takes very special people to deal with people with special needs. So just let's be conscious of that as we go about our day, as we go about our daily tasks, so to speak.
Thank you so much for mentioning that, and thank you so much for being a guest on my show. We will be back next Tuesday at 1:30 on WHPR here in Highland Park. And one of the things that I wanted to remind you of is that God created you, and he can constantly and automatically recreate you. I know at the age that I am now, there have been many times that he recreated me. Now, I didn't figure this out myself. It's in the Bible. But one of the things that Norman Vincent Peale says is that God created you, and he can constantly and automatically recreate you. So do the things that are good for you. I started doing yoga. That's one of the things. I started drinking more water. I started eating less sweets. And I started feeling better. So some of the times we can do something ourselves to make ourselves feel better. So until next week, 1:30, right here on WHPR, I thank R.J. Watkins and I thank Henry Tyler for keeping this station going and giving those of us that wanted to say something, giving us a voice where we can say what is on our mind. Until next week, may the power of God protect you. May the presence of God comfort you. And may the love of God enfold you. Until next week, try to remember to give someone a spoonful of comfort.
When I was 7